The best PCB assembly services near me, WinNow. In this video, we will be looking at the basics of PCB assembly services, the benefits of using them, and the best PCB assembly services near me. What is PCB assembly? PCB assembly is a process in which electronic components are attached to a printed circuit board, PCB, using a variety of techniques. It is a complex process that requires precision and accuracy. Benefits of PCB assembly. There are many benefits to using a PCB assembly service. One of the biggest advantages is that it can save time and money in the long run. Assembling PCBs yourself can be a time-consuming and expensive process, and it is often more cost-effective to outsource this task to a professional. Another benefit of PCB assembly is that it can help to reduce the chances of errors. Professionals who specialize in PCB assembly have the necessary expertise and experience to ensure that the components are attached correctly and that the assembly functions as intended. Finally, using a PCB assembly service can help to ensure that your products meet all necessary quality and safety standards. Professional PCB assembly services use the latest tools and techniques to ensure that the final product meets all relevant regulations. Steps of PCB assembly. The process of PCB assembly typically involves several steps. The first step is to design the PCB. This involves creating a schematic which details the layout and components of the board. Once the schematic is approved, the PCB is manufactured and the components are attached to it. The next step is to assemble the components. This involves soldering, surface mount technology, SMT, and through-hole technology, depending on the components used. The assembly is then tested to ensure that it is functioning correctly. Finally, the assembly is inspected to ensure that it meets all necessary quality and safety standards. If there are any errors or faults, they can be rectified before the final product is shipped. PCB assembly tools and equipment. PCB assembly requires a variety of tools and equipment. This includes soldering tools, such as soldering irons and soldering stations. Other tools and equipment include tweezers, flux, desoldering braid, circuit tester, and magnifying glass. Factors to consider when choosing PCB assembly services. When choosing a PCB assembly service, there are several factors to consider. The first is the experience and expertise of the team. It is important to ensure that the team has the necessary skills and knowledge to complete the task correctly. Types of PCB assembly services. There are several types of PCB assembly services available. The most common type is manual assembly, which involves manually attaching the components to the PCB. This is the most cost-effective option and is usually used for small projects. Another option is automated assembly. This involves using automated tools and machines to attach the components to the PCB. This is usually used for large projects and can help to reduce costs and improve efficiency. Finally, there is surface mount technology, SMT, assembly. This involves using automated tools and machines to attach surface mount components to the PCB. This is often used for high-volume projects and can help to speed up production. Finding the best PCB assembly services near me. When looking for the best PCB assembly services near me, it is important to do your research. Start by searching online for local services and read reviews to get an idea of the quality of the services they offer. Tips for choosing the right PCB assembly services. When choosing a PCB assembly service, there are a few tips that can help to make sure you choose the right one. The first is to make sure the service has the necessary experience and expertise. It is important to ensure that the service can deliver on time and to the highest standards. The second tip is to make sure that the service can meet your needs. Different services offer different services, so it is important to make sure that the service can meet all of your requirements. Finally, it is important to make sure that the service offers competitive rates. Different services will offer different rates, so it is important to compare the options before making a decision. Common mistakes to avoid when choosing PCB assembly services. When choosing a PCB assembly service, there are a few common mistakes to avoid. The first is to choose a service without doing your research. It is important to read reviews and get in touch with the service to make sure they can meet your needs. The second mistake to avoid is to choose a service based solely on price. It is important to make sure that the service has the necessary experience and expertise to complete the job correctly. Finally, it is important to avoid choosing a service without getting a few quotes. This will help to ensure that you get the best possible price for the service. Conclusion. If you are looking for a reliable and experienced PCB assembly service, look no further. We have the experience and expertise to ensure that your PCBs are assembled correctly and to the highest standards. Contact us today to get a quote and find out more about our services. Visit our website, WinNow PCBA.